installation on this channel. My name is Naomi and welcome to my space where I like to talk about knitting, spinning, and the fiber arts. If you would like to follow me on social media, I am the Yarn Curator on Instagram, House of Cardigans on Ravelry, and those are the two primary ways to find me. I do also have a group on Ravelry that I share with my sister Zoe, who has the Felicity Yarn Studio channel, as well as an Etsy shop under the same name, and that is the Curated Felicity group on Ravelry. Her and I are both pretty bad about being active, but we are getting ready to host a new knit along, and so I thought I would mention that because I just realized I didn't turn on my light, so Lumos. Anyways, her and I are going to be hosting a steek along, and we're going to run it through the end of this year. I'm going to put the hashtag on the screen because as soon as I finish filming, I'm going to send her a text and we're going to decide upon that. And you know what, I'm going to go ahead and create a thread in Ravelry. If you are able to use Ravelry, still using Ravelry or whatever, I'm going to leave that there as an option. And then also, if you want to participate but don't feel comfortable using Ravelry right now, hop on over to Instagram using the predetermined hashtag, and we will pull winners from the knit along from there as well. So yeah, welcome back you guys for another week. I know it's been a while since I've sat down to do a kind of traditional show and tell format. That's because I am bursting with ideas for this channel right now, and I wish I had more time to do them. So I'm trying to find ways to put in more of this traditional format video because I know that's what people really enjoy, while balancing the time to create other videos. I know the last time I sat down, I mentioned that I would do a tour of my craft room as well as a video on how I style my hair. Those are coming. I'm working on putting a few things in place for those before I sit down and do them. And then because I am slightly OCD and overthink everything, I've also been trying to think of how I want to publish those in a timeline on my channel, because I do like to post once a week primarily. And so I'm trying to figure out where I can stagger those in with a few other things I have scheduled as well. But worry not, they are coming. So as you might have noticed, I am wearing a finished object this week. This is the Poet Sweater. It is a pattern by Sari Norlund. It was previously in an issue of Lina magazine, and I knit mine out of Bisha Zibouche in the turquoise colorway. And I'm not going to go into too many of the nitty-gritty details because last week I did publish a 15 or so minute video just going through a pattern rundown, you know, all the problems I experienced, tips for anyone thinking about knitting it. So I'll link that in the thingamajig up in the corner. And if you want to go watch that, feel free to go back over there. But you guys, I am so happy this sweater is done. It's a little bittersweet because this was supposed to be my Rhinebeck sweater. And as you guys know, Rhinebeck was canceled. It's okay. I'll try and go next year. If I don't, I'm dying. I am itching to travel again. And for me, travel and planning vacations is something I've always wanted to do since I was like in my early 20s. And throughout my 20s, I never had the financial means to travel. And now that I'm in my 30s and I have a stable job, and while I love my job, it's still a job. And so for me, traveling and vacations and planning things to look forward to makes my job a little bit more palatable. And so I'm really struggling this year with not being able to save and look forward to things. It's really hard for me to stay motivated in that respect because it's nice to have something to work towards. It's nice to have something on the horizon to look forward to. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that sentiment. So I say next year I want to go to Rhinebeck, and I do want to go to Rhinebeck, but I also kind of want to plan a wildly extravagant trip because I'll have 18 months to save for it. And yeah, I kind of hear Scotland calling my name again, or the UK, or Paris or Japan or anywhere that will accept US international travelers at this point. Hopefully next year that's on the horizon. So not that I don't want to go to Rhinebeck next year, I just want to go everywhere next year. Anyways, all that is to say, even though Rhinebeck was canceled, I chose to plow ahead and finish this sweater. I am so pleased that I finished it, and I'll do a little bit of close-up footage for you all to see that beautiful lace, as well as on the raglan here. It does increase into the raglan seams, and somewhere in this area, might have been this one of these I messed up the seat stitch in between the panels. So what I did when I finished knitting this is I just took a piece of scrap thread and I looped it through and did a little bit of duplicate stitch over because I was not trying to tink back and fix it when I discovered that mistake, and luckily that was an easy fix, no one could tell. And since this is a non-superwash yarn, it was really easy to just kind of, I don't even think I properly woven the ends. I'm just banking on them slowly kind of felting in place over time. So yeah, I am super pleased with this finished garment. I did mention this is a non-superwash yarn. It's a little bit toothy. It's got a little bit of a scratch to it. And I do notice it in my kind of sensitive elbow region. However, nothing along the neck. That never bothers me. It's always kind of right here. It is one of those projects where after you wear it for a while, I don't really notice it anymore. And because this is a woolen spun yarn, this feels so light. I don't even feel like I'm wearing a sweater right now, unlike a project I'm going to show you in a few minutes. Yeah, overall, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I struggled. I struggled to get started. I struggled with my confidence. I struggled to understand the pattern, but in the end, I overcame. So that is exciting to know that I have grown as a knitter. I've definitely gotten a huge confidence boost finishing this project, and that, yeah, I can take on something this challenging. I know Zoe has been talking about doing an all over cabled sweater recently, and I don't really enjoy the act of doing cables. I do have to admit some of the patterns she's been looking at are absolutely stunning, but in terms of the process of making a cable, it's not very enjoyable to me. I'd much rather do lace. And I think that's because with lace, your stitches stay firmly planted on the needle. And so like, yeah, even though you're decreasing and increasing and twisting things and, you know, all that goes with lace, I never have to take either the stitch off or fiddle with an extra needle or contort weirdly if you're doing a cable without a cable needle. So I think that's why I enjoy lace over cables a little bit more in terms of process. But anyways, that is said, I kind of want to do a cable sweater. We'll start small. I should do a cable cowl or something. But yeah, some of the patterns she's picked out are really pretty, and I totally understand wanting something like that in your wardrobe. So in terms of knitting, aside from finishing my poet, because for some reason, even though they're 3/4 length, I feel like the sleeves took a really long time to knit on this. I don't know if it's just because it's such a loose gauge or just, I don't know. In my mind, I was like, I should be able to knit a sleeve a night, and in 2 nights I'll have this thing finished. And in reality, it took me a week to knit the sleeves. I know I talked about this in my last sit down episode. It's like we always think things are going to go faster than they do. Overly optimistic in that regard a lot of the time, but it is what it is. It's all good. It's done. I'm happy. I have another garment I can add to my wardrobe, and so all is well with the world. Next up on my needles, I only have, I thought I only had 2 whips to show you guys, but I guess I have 3. So for works in progress, I have continued making progress on my Diaphanous Raglan, which is a pattern by Jessie May Designs, and I absolutely love this project. I love the way it's working up. So I have started one of the sleeves, and this has been my work knitting lately, whether I want to knit on my lunch break or if we're in a Teams meeting and I can just kind of underneath the desk. And we've been having a lot of those lately. And it's really helpful in those meetings because a lot of times I get frustrated. We're going through our strategic planning process right now at work, and last week we met with our partner groups that we work with. For those of you who are new here, I'm a curator at a local history museum, and that is hence the name of the channel. But we were meeting with a lot of our volunteer partner groups and seeing what they wanted to see for the future of the museum. And a lot of them had really good ideas, and a lot of them had some really zany ideas. And it's a lot of things that sound good to say, but it's kind of like, well, who's gonna do that? Who's gonna tend the livestock you want to see at the museum, to give you a flavor of some of the suggestions. I personally would love to have goats at work, but I don't want to be the one tending the goats at work, or keeping the goats from eating children, or keeping coyotes away from the goats, or all the other things that come with goats. I love goats. I think a stress therapy goat would be perfectly needed at work. I am on a tangent. Wow. While they were making suggestions that we needed cows and goats in a citrus orchard, I knit about 6 inches of my sleeve. This is Stranded Dye Works, her mohair silk base in the blue rinse colorway. And the body is also knit out of her fingering weight base and blue rinse. So the last time I showed it, I had bound off the body. I have done, about 5 inches of that sleeve. I'm kind of tempted to do this 3/4 length, but I'm going through. The sleeves will be done before I know it because they're knit on US size 9 needles, which is a 5.5 millimeters. So that's a really large gauge for that sleeve. So they are going quickly, considering I've only worked on them for maybe 6 hours max. So yeah, that is moving along slowly but nicely. And honestly, it's my only mindless project I have right now, which has been another thing I've been working through. I'm in this weird place with my knitting. I don't think my mojo is not gone by any means. I want to knit. There's so many patterns I want to make out there right now, but I feel like everything that I have on my needles right now is pensive. It's not the right word, but it requires paying attention. It requires some thought. And they all require that thought or that attention to detail in slightly different ways. So that's nice when I want to stimulate my mind differently. However, I don't have anything where I can just like pick up and knit. And I don't like knitting socks, but I have been tempted to cast on a pair of socks just to fulfill that need. But the problem is I don't enjoy the process of making socks. And this is where I diverge from Zoe completely. But there's something about them that I don't like making them. I don't know if it's because it's like by the time you finish knitting the cuff, it's time to turn the heel, and that requires thought. Or if that by the time you get into a good rhythm working like the instep, then you're binding off the toe. I don't know, there's just something about socks that I don't enjoy. So if you have a good suggestion, let me know down below. I think I might cast on the Bennett sister shawl. It's a pattern that I saw when we were up in North Carolina earlier this year at one of the local yarn stores. And it's knit with 2 fingering weight yarns, and then half the shawl is held with mohair. But I think it's pretty simple. I think it's just either increasing along the center spine or along the outer edges of the wingspan. It's just a triangular shaped shawl. So I might cast that on to kind of have something more mindless to sink my teeth into, because I don't know, something's just it's not checking that gratifying knit box at the moment. which other things are for different reasons, but you guys know what I mean. What's your favorite project to go to when you want something enjoyable to work on, not too hard to think about, and that isn't a sock? Let me know down below. Okay, so for my next work in progress, if you watched the video I did with Zoe where we talked about our knitting fails, you would have also seen that we're hosting the Steek Along. So her and I are both knitting the Woodlark Shawl by Larke, who is Fiber Tales. That is her design name as well as her channel name on YouTube. So this is what I've started so far. It's a triangular shaped shawl, and then you steek it in half. So that is where the steek runs. And I have cast mine on out of primarily Bishi Bouche in this white ecru colorway. And then for the color work, I was originally thinking I would do it kind of scrappy looking. And so I have used leftover blue from my Poet for these baubles. And then this is some of Zoe's non-superwash in the purple, as well as more Bishi Bouche leftover from a project earlier this year. Do you guys think I like this yarn? I don't know. I love all these colors together, and now that I've pulled it back out, I'm feeling a little bit better about the color combinations. I put it down the other day and I was like, I just don't like the way everything is playing with each other. And so I put it in timeout, and that's why putting things in timeout is always good, because now that I'm pulling it out, I don't hate it as much. But what I was thinking I would do is rip back to this garter row right here and work that in the same blue turquoise colorway, just to introduce some more color and break up the white space. I don't know, there's something about the amount of white space compared to the amount of color in this that's like throwing me for a loop. And I had started to introduce this kind of peach color in there. I'm pretty sure I messed that color work up. So, excuse me, I don't know why my voice is going. So yeah, I plan on ripping it back a little bit anyways and just playing with the color placement. I think I might actually pull out some colored pencils and try drawing it out just because I overthink everything, and I feel like with color work, it has to be right. The placement has to be right. The color choices have to be right. And so, yeah, while I would hate to rip back that amount of work, I want a product that I'm going to enjoy in the long run. And so we'll see. I do have to say, it is, looking at it now, it is better than when I was working on it a week or two ago, and maybe that little bit of distance is helping. I think I'm probably going to take out this peach because it kind of looks like nacho cheese dip to me right now. There's something about that color that is throwing me for a loop, and I love that color. I don't know what it is. I've also debated, I don't have it with me. I have a cone of some dark blue Holst, and I was thinking maybe I would just hold it with the peach color and do the main body out of the peach with the dark blue as the color work. But while I like the biches and it's definitely toothy, the Holst is a little bit toothier to me, so I don't know if I want, well, that's not too bad around my neck. We'll see. I got decisions to make is really what that boils down to. So that project's still in timeout. I still need to have a good think about it and decide the path forward. For my final whip, we're going to segue a little bit with spinning because that has been what's been occupying the majority of my time that I've spent making lately. And if you've been around for a few episodes, you'll know that I have been spinning to make a Jupiter crop by Caitlin Hunter, and I finally finished spinning all of the yarn and I have cast on the project. So it took me about a week, but I finally spun enough of the main color. All of the fiber I'm using is from John Arbin Textiles on his Yarnadelic base. It's a 100% Coriodale with a 29 micron count, and the pattern calls for a sport weight yarn, and I tried my darndest. I pre-drafted things down, but I have wound up with a whole lot of like DK borderline worsted, and instead of finding a new project to work on that matches the weight, I'm just making it work because I'm stubborn. So I ordered 500 extra grams of the main color, which is Indigo Dust. And when the first time I spun this, I definitely spun like worsted borderline bulky, and that's what's sitting right here. Although there are like sections of it that I think are the correct yardage, and this is the same. It's mostly the correct yardage. It's mostly the correct weight yarn. However, there are definitely thick parts. I don't know if you guys can see that. And then it goes into thin parts, and I'm just gonna embrace the beauty of hand spun. It is not going to be uniform and perfect, and I'm just going with the process of this make this time as opposed to solely focusing on the product. And yeah, let me know down below as well, you guys. Are you a process or are you a product knitter? Or are you some combination of both? I definitely think I'm a little bit of both, and it just depends on the project and what I'm in the mood for and what I'm needing at that moment in time. So anyways, I spent about a week respinning this color. I don't even know how much I spun of it because my husband, Mr. Yarn Curator, he kept talking to me while I was counting, and so I think I spun about 300 yards. I really don't know though, because he was just too chatty and I forgot the numbers, and I'm not stressed about it. I know I have more than enough. So I did a gauge swatch, which is in the other room, because I know that my yarn is heavier in weight than what the pattern calls for. I went up 2 needle sizes for my gauge swatch, and I think it looked good. And then I blocked it, and then I thought everything looked a little too loose, but I think my swatch was still a little bit damp when I was trying to verify the numbers. And so I picked it back up last night, and everything kind of firmed back up, and I really like the piece of fabric on US size 7s. But because I didn't realize that my swatch was still a little damp, so what I chose to do is I went down a needle size. So I'm knitting mine on a US size 6, and because my gauge is a little bit bigger than the pattern, I also went down a pattern size to account for that difference in sizing. So I will show you guys what I have so far, and this thing is heavy. This is going to be a heavy, warm sweater that I get to wear the 2 days a year. It gets into the 30s here where I live, which is fine. I still enjoy the process, and I enjoy creating things. So this is the back of the sweater because that is where all the short rows are, but I think you can get a better view of it. So the top row is, I believe this is the Beautiful Ones, followed by, this is the Beautiful Ones, this is Waltz, this is Lady in Blue, and I don't remember what this kind of mauvey purple one is. So the top color is definitely the thinnest color work yarn that I spun, and I'll hold it up so you can get a view of it. So this one came out the thinnest. It's also a little bit overspun. The yarn is really stiff, if that makes sense. This doesn't sound weird, but I feel like yarns have personalities with hand spun, and like this yarn is uptight and OCD, whereas this yarn is like your fun-loving, free spirit, kind of a little bit of a hot mess, but you love it anyways in all of its disheveled glory. And then this yarn turned out probably the best out of all of them, and It's balanced, it's got its shit together, it is just, it's beautiful. It's like the hot girl who walks into the room. Is that weird? And then this yarn, you can tell I've been spending a lot of time with this yarn. This yarn is more like the girl next door. It has some quirks, it has some personality, it's a little uptight, a little overspun, but still really beautiful, and you know, it's just a really nice person. It's a very sweet yarn. And then this yarn is like a little bit big, a little bit burly. It's got some fluffy spots where, you know, it's indulged in a little too many desserts, and then you can see where it's gone on a crash diet. I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know where I was going with that other than to say all of these yarns have a different personality, and I'm hoping they'll play well together in the schoolyard that is the Jupiter crop sweater. And yeah, I'm really pleased with it. But you can, as I was starting to say, up here on this top section, this yarn probably came out closer to a fingering to a DK weight. So I'm hoping that the plump, the slightly over plump nature of the main color will even that out. This next color turned out almost more like a woolen spun. It's a lot loftier and airier. And then these two colors are playing really nicely. They're probably the closest in having a not only a consistent weight, you know, in terms of thickness, but in terms of matching the weight of this yarn. So I'm really enjoying it. I do know from my swatch, my row gauge is a little bit bigger than what Caitlin's calls for in the pattern. What I'm planning on doing right now is, or what I've been doing is holding this up to my Soldatna because I really like where that divide hits. And I'm just gonna pre-divide the sleeves kind of around there. I'm hoping that I will have worked to the last increase row that's worked in the yoke before dividing. If not, I'll fudge it, I'll make it work. But yeah, where the yoke works is there's an increase row and then you still knit for about 10 rows before dividing your sleeves, which would give me more of kind of like a bat wing fit. I do want it a little bit more high and tight in my armpits, so I'll divide early and then just keep working those rows, and then when I pick up my sleeves, I'll know to pick up on that row of the chart. But overall, I'm really enjoying this knit. I'm really excited. It's the first time I have spun for a sweater project, and so it's been a fun learning process, and yeah, I appreciate you guys being along the ride of that process with me. So I think I have rambled long enough. I went on a whole diatribe about yarns and personalities and all of that good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and cut things short today. I know I usually talk a little bit about life and work, but I like to keep these videos about 30 minutes long. I know everyone has a limited time to spend on these videos, so I do try and keep them short-ish and sweet and relatively on topic. I can't always promise that happens, but let me know down below what you guys are working on, what you enjoy for mindless projects, if you feel like certain yarns have certain personalities. And until next time, I hope you guys enjoy your making or whatever brings you joy. I'll talk to you later. Bye!